Ladies and gentlemen, we went all in, and this past weekend we went all out, and now we are back for another edition of Top Rope Takes. We got bad blood on the horizon, lots of things happening in the world of pro wrestling. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, along with my co host, Willie Thrill. Will, another great episode on the horizon. And what a great weekend of wrestling that we got.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with both WWE and AEW this past weekend and last night on Monday Night Raw. I'm excited to talk all about it. But let's get started with Monday Night Raw, more timely of the
Mm-hmm.
matters. We will be discussing All Out later on in the program.
Stay tuned.
But we had the first Raw. They called it the season premiere of Raw because this is the first Raw that went head to head with Monday Night Football. And I will
Mm.
be recapping this Raw accordingly with my side by side screening of Monday Night Football. So there we go. We got started off. This was an interesting decision by WWE. They started off with the Wyatt Six street fight against American Made 4-on-4. This was all out action
I thought it was
from the
great.
jump. Phenomenal stuff. I thought this was probably the best showing for the Wyatt Six so far. And I
Yes.
thought American Made had a great showing as well. Cool spots with putting Rowan through the table after a fire extinguisher.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Rowan getting back up, lifting the barricade
Mm-hmm.
and just running over people. You had Nikki Cross hitting an insane German suplex just out of nowhere. I know she's playing this Abby the Witch character, but how about that German suplex? It was
Yeah.
incredible. And then Uncle Howdy getting involved, Sister Abigail and Wyatt Six picking up the win. Jason, your thoughts on this opening match to go head to head with Monday Night Football on a commercial free first
Yes,
hour?
commercial free. Apparently, that's going to be the new norm going forward, which I'm all a fan of. Certainly, you wish Jets fans probably wish they were watching Raw instead of Monday Night Football. But that's besides the point. I thought this looked great. Thought this was a really fun match, especially a great way to kick up the show. I thought that the Wyatt Six, this was the best they've looked and the most I was ever interested in them. I really think this is the style that they should be presented with going forward, where like I don't buy the supernatural stuff, and then they're like following the rules of like traditional tag team matches. I like the hardcore street fight like wild element to them. I think that fits best with their character. So yeah, I really enjoyed this match. I thought American Made looked great in it as well. No surprise with the victory, but I thought it was a really fun match and a super fun way to kick off the show.
Great way to kick off the show. And luckily, they went head to head with an Aaron Rodgers 3-and-out. So that
Mm-hmm.
no competition there. Raw
Yeah.
gets the point for that. And I think the Wyatt Six, they finally wrapped up this thing with American Made. I think the next clear direction for them is, you know, I think they're going to go after the new Judgment Day, but we'll get to the new Judgment Day
Oh, interesting.
coming up shortly because, again, their whole theme is going after broken families.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment Day is the most recent to break up their family. It just seems faction versus faction.
That
It
makes
makes
sense.
the most logical sense. There's so many different dynamics at play here, too, where you have Abby the Witch who can go after
Live.
Liv Morgan. You have the tag team championships on Finn and JD. You could have Gacy and Loomis go
Mm-hmm.
after them tag team. And then also just the real element too, which I think will be interesting, is Dominic Mysterio with Liv Morgan, who in real life is Bo Dallas's ex-girlfriend.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And the idea that Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, could go after Dominic for again a little too close to a former lover, that just intrigues me on a certain
I
level.
like that. That's fun.
And also, can you imagine the interactions between Carlito and Eric Rowan? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sold on that alone.
Yeah, right.
So I'm looking forward to see what the Wyatt Six does next, and hopefully, we'll get to this next segment. I think the Judgment Day will be wrapping up their stuff as
Mm.
well with the Terror Twins.
Yes.
So on that topic, we had Finn Balor come out for a promo here. I find it interesting. Like I sometimes forget that Finn and JD are the tag team champions because it really just
Yeah.
feels like Finn has a singles belt
Yeah.
and
It's been a
JD
bit
is
of a
just kind of
run.
like a lackey for him.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like a true tag
Tag.
team between the two. Whereas when Finn and Priest were the tag team champions, at least I felt like, okay, that's a tag team in the Judgment Day.
I agree with that.
He comes out, basically calls out Damian Priest and gives all the reasons why he decided to turn on Damian Priest at SummerSlam, bringing up the fact that last year he should have been the world heavyweight champion, but Damian Priest had that Money in the Bank contract that kind of screwed him over on multiple
Tisk,
occasions.
tisk, tisk.
I did like this promo, but I felt like this should have been said earlier. Like, I feel like this should have been the day or
like
like the
immediately
Monday after,
after.
yeah,
Yeah,
Monday after SummerSlam. Like this should have been the promo. I'm glad that they finally did it here, but I
yeah.
feel like it was a little late. What are your thoughts on this
No, I
whole?
agree with that completely. I think if this would have been better suited directly after SummerSlam to give some reasoning. Finn Balor, there's a lot of heels in this company right now that are heels, but are like justified, and I think he's one of them. Um, I've always been a huge Finn Balor guy, so I mean, I'm happy to see him kind of get his due and be put into a major singles program again. But I have a hard time believing he's going to beat Damian, so I kind of wonder like where does he go from here?
Right. Yeah, that is interesting because I do think this new Judgment Day needs to look strong,
Yeah,
and
and they
so
haven't.
they haven't. So in that logic, I would give Finn the win, but you also want to keep the momentum going for Priest.
Yeah,
So I'm curious to see what they do in that matchup. We'll have to see. Also, a notable thing that happened: Finn Balor mentioned that he like Damian Priest kind of turned him into a sidekick,
yeah.
and
All
he's
you
like,
knew
"I ain't no
sidekick.
sidekick."
That was really bad.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sorry.
then but they it got the crowd going with
Yeah,
sidekick chants. So I wonder if that's going to be a direction they go move forward, is calling out the fact that Finn Balor was treated like a sidekick. He wants to be the
yeah.
leader of this new faction.
Also
Uh,
important to note: Finn Balor versus Damian Priest made official for Bad Blood. No word on if that's a Hell in a Cell match, but it is official one-on-one.
I don't think it should be a Hell in a Cell if they're already going to go with another
Yeah,
rivalry that will be in Hell in a Cell. But they also did announce Ripley versus Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship at Bad Blood as well. So we got those two
and
matches
that's a regular one-on-one, no
official.
stip.
I believe so. Because they haven't, well, they did the one on one at SummerSlam, but then that had all the shenanigans
The
with Dominic
shenanigans. Yeah.
Mysterio. So this is a good like rematch
Okay.
for them. So I kind of like that. Women's tag title match, pretty straightforward. This tag
Yeah,
team division is
I
kind
fast
of,
forwarded through it. I'm not ashamed to say that. Sorry, girls.
yeah, no, I don't blame you at all because the tag team division is really lackluster. This is when I was full on
Mm,
Monday Night Football. Brees Hall with the touchdown here. We had
yeah.
Debo Samuel doing a little action. So definitely a point for Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Love those two getting the touchdown. Did not get my 3-leg parlay though. I had Garrett Wilson getting a
No.
touchdown. Didn't happen, but you know what? Got the Brees Hall touchdown bet locked in. So,
Yeah.
made some cash. Not this, by the way, I'm not promoting gambling on the show whatsoever. We do not
I
promote
am.
gambling. You know, you are.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go there, but well,
Yeah, well,
we'll
you
see.
did.
Hey, DraftKings, if you want to sponsor this podcast, feel free.
Unofficial sponsor.
We had Bret Hart on the show. The
Yeah, we
Bret the
did.
Hitman Hart.
Best there is, the
As
best there
Xavier
was.
Woods said later on, he's serving dinner. He's got plates on his hands. I did love that segment
So
later. We'll talk
funny.
about it later on. But Bret the Hitman Hart coming out, we had Joe Tessitore, Wade Barrett in the ring.
Yeah.
Bret Hart did look a little out of it, but apparently he was sick and almost actually didn't make the show at all.
Oh, really?
So credit to him for making it out
He's had
there.
a health issues the last couple of years. I think I
Yeah, he came
appreciate
out of the
Bret Hart
middle of
when
the
he can.
ring. He was facing the crowd the wrong way. Wade Barrett had to turn him to the hard cam, which by your logic, maybe you should have went to the performance center before coming on to
Yeah, right.
Raw today.
Come on,
But
Bret.
Bret was talking, and then of course was interrupted by, or he's talking about Canadian champions, how they never
Mhm.
back down from a fight. They're willing to take on all comers. This brings out Gunther, who we saw back down from Sami Zayn last week.
Ah, yes.
And he said the line of the night here, where he calls Bret Hart his second favorite wrestler, and he wants to give a shout out to his favorite wrestler. And at this point, I think everyone is kind of thinking, oh, he's going to say Shawn Michaels. Like, this is obvious.
Yeah.
And it also makes a little bit of sense because he was in NXT around the time when Shawn
Yeah, it
Michaels
could have gone either way.
took over. But the fact that he said Bill Goldberg, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome, Jason.
Yeah.
And then Sami Zayn came down in the Johnny Gaudreau jersey, which I thought was incredible. We'll get to that later on. And then he just basically ran down Gunther and called him out. And the crowd was really behind this. Obviously, they want to see Sami Zayn win this world title at some point.
Yes.
And what better time than now? Uh-oh. We got an alert.
Oh.
It's just in.
Oh, you turn your phone off. Apparently
It's just
not.
in. During this time, San Francisco kicked a field goal. They went up early.
I love
on
that
the
you have the notes about what happened during each segment. That's incredible.
Well, it was important because they're going head to head with Monday Night Football, so you got to make sure. And clearly, you're in touch with what's going on ESPN right now.
Yes.
So
Sorry, I'm trying to turn my phone off. I'm
no,
just
you're
struggling
fine.
massively.
You're fine. But this definitely got the win for me if we're comparing the two TV shows at this time.
Yes.
Really into this segment. Jason, your thoughts?
Um, I thought it was okay. I'm a big Gunther guy, so anything he does, I think is funny. Um, yeah, Sam. I mean, Sammy's a great challenger for him. It's logical. It's all the stuff we said last week. The Goudreau jersey was a nice touch to really just put him over the edge as far as like babyface in Calgary. I didn't think Bret Hart needed to be there, but I guess if you're in Calgary, bring him in. Why not? Um, I thought it was good. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're gonna get into maybe bad blood, right?
Yeah, I imagine so. That'll be the nice world heavyweight title match you get on there.
But Gunther's such an underrated heel. Like he's one of those heels. I think this is the only thing I really have major to say about this. Gunther is one of those heels who could very easily get over as a babyface because of how good he is. But he's so good at reeling it back in to where you want to boo him because he's that good at his job.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like just his delivery on like some of the
Yeah.
most simple things, like the way he
You would
delivered
not
the
fan
Bill
of
Goldberg
champion.
line. Yeah, it's simple, but it's effective, and he's
Yeah.
just so great at his role of being this like foreign heel menace that just dominates everyone. Because in a world where you have all these, wild kind of characters, you kind of need someone who's like just the straight wrestler.
Yeah.
Who's just about getting on the mat and winning, just by doing simple stuff.
And for what it's worth, I would also enjoy seeing Gunther versus Bill Goldberg.
Man, the thing is, here's the thing: Goldberg has to lose, and I don't know if Goldberg
Yes,
wants to
yeah,
lose.
100%.
I don't trust that. I mean,
No.
I guess hopefully, if he were to do
Bret
business,
Hart special referee, book it.
Oh, you know what? Now I'm kind of with you there. That'd be fun. It was funny because when he said the Bill Goldberg, like Bret Hart did kind of smile a bit. He kind of broke a bit because he was like, "This is ridiculous." Like, so that was just fantastic. Dragon Lee later on took Dominic Mysterio. My notes for this: Aaron Rodgers throws a interception off. It was crazy because it was like ricocheted off one of the corner. I wish I remember the name, but then they got the interception. So point for Monday Night Football there. I'm sure this match was cool though.
Dragon Lee does nothing for me.
He's had his moments, but I'm just like I feel like I don't know. They kind of dropped the ball on him when he debuted like a year or so ago.
I feel like they've been trying.
He had a hot start, and then kind of they didn't put him on the main roster fully.
I feel like they've been trying for literally 15 years to find Rey Mysterio's heir apparent, and there is no heir apparent to Rey Mysterio. It does not going to work in 2024.
Dude, the heir apparent is Dom because he's literally the heir apparent. And it's
no,
just,
but you know what I mean. Like they want to. Find
I know the mass
superstar,
luchador. Yeah.
Like they tried with like Kalisto and Dragon Lee and Sin Cara and who else? Who are some of the other?
Well, it doesn't even have to have a match. They've tried it with Del Rio, Andrade. They just want they want like a Latino superstar. Yeah. And they just haven't really landed on the guy.
Yeah, Santos.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think Dragon Lee is more than capable of doing it, but they got to give him more of a spotlight.
You know what the issue is? It's hard to get over with an American crowd when you don't speak English.
That's true. Yeah, and as long as Ray's there, like it's going to be hard to find the next Ray when you literally have Ray still active doing his thing.
Yeah. But anyway, this match was fine. What's there to say?
Yeah, there isn't much to say other than Rogers needs to get his stuff together. Lyra Valkyria and Zelina Vega with their mystery partner took on the Pure Fusion Collective.
Has a team ever been dead quicker than the Pure Fusion Collective?
I know. And this is the part when like I was getting close to halftime. So like WWE was like, all right, we don't have to worry about anything. Let's throw on this match. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And it was weird because at first I was excited. I'm like, oh, a mystery partner. Who could it be? And then I remember they're in Calgary and I'm like, oh, it's going to be Natalya.
Which, like, good for Natalya on a personal level. I'm glad she got that spot in that moment, whatever. But fast forwarded this one too, unfortunately, ladies. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean it was cool. They did the Canada submission spot where Natalia locked in the sharpshooter, and then they did the Walls of Jericho and the single leg Boston Crab
Oh, that's
of
cool.
Lance Storm. So they kind of
Yeah.
did an homage to the Canadian
If I could
wrestlers.
be serious for a moment. Yeah.
Yes. So that was cool. Um, and then I actually did like the promo segment we got later where Bret Hart was there to congratulate Natty, and it was like, this is Natty's moment. Before it was just like oddly cut off to
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre. But I did like that moment as well. Other than that, yeah, this trio is really dead in the water.
Justice for Shayna Baszler. I need the Shayna Baszler back from NXT. Triple H, if you're listening right now, which I know you are, we want back the Queen of Spades, okay? We want the badass. We want the submission magician, not this third wheel lesbian biker gang, okay? We're done with it. Give me back something cool. Justice for Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, and then if you don't want to do it on WWE, then just have her do more GCW matches because that's when she could really thrive.
Yeah.
We had this Drew McIntyre promo next up, which I thought this was great because, and I'll get into it later, but he, talks about Punk. He kind of is like egging on the crowd to chant CM Punk because he thinks CM Punk is kind of over and done with at this point after what happened last week with the bracelet,
Yeah.
and turns his attention to Wade Barrett and
Oh,
says,
yes.
whoa, wait a second. Like, you've been
Well, I've
you've
got
been kind
some
of,
bad
you're
news.
like one of my close friends. We've been
Mhm.
arrested together. He's mentioned all this stuff, but he feels like he hasn't really been on Drew's side recently.
Mhm.
So he warns Wade if like you ever cross that line again, like it's going to be over for you. This is when Pierce comes out.
Mhm.
Pierce acknowledges how ridiculous this whole situation is and then informs Drew McIntyre that at Bad Blood, which I'm praying for CM Punk here, CM Punk will, in fact, face Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell. Jason,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts here?
Um, I mean, we saw this match coming with the inside Hell in a Cell specifically. Um, I thought the Wade Barrett stuff was interesting because it was a direction I wasn't expecting. I don't know if it's just a way to get more intense heat on Drew McIntyre by attacking the lowly former wrestler, but commentator now. If it leads to Drew McIntyre hitting a bullhammer elbow, though, I'm all for it. Um,
Oh, like Drew hitting it on Punk in the match?
no, 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 no. I want Wade Barrett to hit Drew
Oh,
McIntyre with
Wade
a
Barrett hit Drew
bullhammer.
McIntyre. Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Boom. Anyway, um, other than that, I think this Hell in a Cell match. It sucks that CM Punk's got to be involved in it because I think it's actually a really important moment in the company's direction because, especially with them going to Netflix soon, this Hell in a Cell match needs to be entertaining because, quite frankly, the last Hell in a Cell over the last 10 years has not been entertaining. It's been watered down Hell in a Cell because of the PG restrictions. Like, they don't do anything. Hell in a Cell used to be violent. Hell in a Cell used to be meant you were guaranteed to get blood and table spots and thumbtacks and going on top of the cell. Now it's just a no DQ match with a cage as like a aesthetic. Like it's just like they don't do anything. So I'm hoping we get more of a classic Hell in a Cell feel in this match. I want some stakes. I want something closer to what we got at the main event of AEW All Out, which by the way we're going to talk about, so stay tuned. Um, that's what I want from this match. Don't give me the PG BS that we've been seeing. Give me 1997 Hell in a Cell. That's what I want.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't go that far. I think there have been some decent Hell in a Cell matches over the past decade, but they're few and far
Couldn't name
between.
them.
I get your point. Well, here that's what I want to ask you. What do you think the last good Hell in a Cell match was?
Last good Hell in a Cell match. That requires me to
Yeah.
remember the last couple Hell in a Cell matches. I can tell you what the worst Hell in a Cell match was. That
Oh
one
yeah,
stuck with
that's easy. Yeah, that's
me.
a no-brainer.
Honestly, dude, like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, which I think is good, speaks to my point. The last spot I remember is like from 2018. It's the Randy Orton Jeff Hardy screwdriver thing. Um, that was the last time I was like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Um, I don't know. You got one?
Yeah. The one that immediately comes to mind was Edge Seth Rollins 2021 Crown Jewel.
Okay.
That one was really because that was a feud ender. I was surprised because I was like, we haven't had a good Hell in a Cell match in forever.
Mm.
And so the fact that they really culminated that feud in a great match, I was
Edge
like,
and
that
Finn later had one at
was
WrestleMania, didn't they?
that was horrible. That was so bad. I
Yeah.
hated that one.
Hmm.
So that was another one that's like top bottom tier Hell in a Cell
Hmm.
matches. But Edge and Rollins had a really good one.
Cody and Seth with the torn pec.
Cody and Seth. Oh yeah, that's true. That actually might be
But
even
is
better.
it
But
okay? But is that match known for being a good match or for being a moment for Cody?
that also didn't have to be like in Hell in a Cell for it to be good. Like
Yeah,
it could have been any type of match. It could
yeah.
have been a
Just
no DQ match and it would have
the
been
fact that he
same
was
deal.
competing.
Whereas Edge and Seth, I actually, you know what? You actually make a point there. I will say Cody and Seth is better than Edge
Mm.
and Seth. But those two matches are recent examples of like you can still do Hell in a Cell, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the reason why I think I like the Edge and Seth one was because it wasn't at a pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell. It
Yes.
was like it warranted a Hell in a Cell match, so they did a Hell in a Cell match.
Get rid. I think we have gone this direction of getting rid of all the name of the pay per views named after match tips because it just books yourself into a corner creatively. I hate it.
Right. I think the only two that should stay are Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank.
I
Outside of
agree with
that,
that.
don't
Yeah,
don't do it. I don't even like War Games being like a annual
like a
thing.
Survivor Series thing.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
should be like you I want it to be able to switch on and off between war games or brand warfare, whatever
Yeah.
the situation calls for
Yes,
in
I
a
agree with
given
that.
year.
I think I
Um
think for this November though, it does call for war games, but that's not neither here nor there for this podcast. I guess
right. Well, yeah, we'll get to that,
eventually.
probably in a month or two. But
Yeah.
regardless, and they did announce that pay-per-view was going on sale because that's going to be taking place in Canada.
If I do
Here,
not get William Regal coming out to say war games in November, I'm gonna lose my shit.
he's back. He's in
He's
WWE.
back.
They
I
have to
know. I
have him
know.
say it.
He just
They'll probably
zooms in
just
from the offices in Stanford.
yeah, exactly. It'll probably be Adam Pierce though. Let's be honest.
Lame.
Uh, I am concerned for Punk's health for this match. They teased at Clash. This is what I do like though. They did tease at Clash at the Castle that this would end in Hell in a Cell when Punk was like, "I don't want to be in a Hell in a Cell match."
Mhm.
After a reporter was like, "Oh, you guys should go in Hell in a Cell for the first match," and he's like,
Yeah.
"Are you insane? Like, I'm glad you're not the booker."
Yeah.
But I do think that adds a little more intrigue in this match because it's going to be like every moment of this match, kind of similar to the Cody Seth match we mentioned before, is going to
Mhm.
be like, oh my gosh, like he could really. There's going to be an element of realism in it where it's like
Yeah.
he could seriously get hurt in any
CM
of
Punk should
these
wear one of those
spots.
Guardian caps.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Show up looking like the Michelin Man.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be great. Just wrapped in bubble wrap or something. That'd be crazy.
Maybe you, dude, if the feud is over, if Drew McIntyre shows up to Raw one night with a thing of bubble wrap and like, here you go. Don't want you
Yeah,
getting yourself hurt again.
right. But what I did like about this segment is because I think it's clear Punk's going to win the Hell in a Cell, or at least that's what I'm kind of figuring. Punk wins the Hell in a Cell, goes after Gunther Survivor Series, and then bleeds into the Seth Rollins thing,
Yes.
going into WrestleMania.
Yes.
My question was, what does Drew do so that he keeps his momentum going? And what I like about this segment is they could go in an interesting direction with him and Wade Barrett. What if Wade Barrett finally makes his return? He probably watched All In, saw Nigel McGuinness return. He was like, you know what? I got to get back in the ring.
Hmm.
It would be, I think, Drew's most intriguing feud post Punk would be against Wade Barrett. I think that would actually be an intriguing storyline that would get Drew over. You don't have to have a Wade win, but it would be like an intense storyline that would keep Drew's momentum going in that main event picture. What about
I
you?
agree. I think that could be fun. I think eventually after that, Drew's probably making the jump to SmackDown to go after Cody, right?
Right. I imagine so, but if they don't want to do any like cross brand stuff
Yeah.
anymore, because I think Randy Orton's coming back to SmackDown and that'll be the direction they go in for Cody later on. But I think because outside of Cody and then this Wade Barrett kind of tease, there's really not much for him to do unless he wants to get involved in that Intercontinental title picture, which I do think is a bit of a step down for him, and it's unnecessary for him to be involved unless you want to have Braun be like a face and go against Drew to put him over. But again,
Yeah.
I still think you want to have Drew ride high in the main event scene after this Punk stuff. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a good way for him to do that while not interacting with
Drew
anyone that's
McIntyre versus
necessarily
Bronson
labeled on the
Reed.
card.
Does that do anything for you?
No,
Cool.
that because Bronson Reed would need to win, and I don't want Drew losing. So
Yeah.
that's you get booked into a card. But great segment overall, and excited for the Hell in a Cell match, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
praying for Punk. Rey Mysterio took on Finn Balor.
Sure did.
You have any thoughts on this?
Um, Not really. Um, Nothing that we haven't said about the new Judgment Day and Finn Balor already.
This was my favorite part of the night where Jordan Mason scored a touchdown after laying down a live touchdown bet. I was so ingenious, right? So at halftime, I noticed they're giving it to Jordan Mason. And I'm like, okay, he could definitely score a touchdown, but the odds are a little low right now. So I waited till after the drive. They kicked a field goal. And then after halftime, it was at plus 245. And I'm like, I'm going to lay down. Nothing big. I
Gotta
don't go
smash
bigger than
that.
25 bets. Responsible gambling, people. Only bet what
Mm-hmm.
you can, spend.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
went a little $12 to win 40. Next touchdown, boom, right away. Pumping my fist in the air. But yeah, I'm sure Rain Pin was cool. What about you?
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this. I mean, it's a classic, whatever. Finn building up Finn.
Yeah, point for Monday Night Football for those keeping track.
Point for Gryffindor.
Now we have a fatal four-way number one contender main event, which was off the charts, I thought. Fantastic. We had Jey Uso getting a big win here,
Big old W.
becoming the number one contender. But my spot of this match was when Strowman was cleaning house, knocking over the announce table, and we got a tsunami out of nowhere, like legitimately out of nowhere, where Brodsky just comes in, standing on top of the barricade and jumping on a standing Braun Strowman into the announce table. I thought visually this looked awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see. I don't think this will be at Bad Blood, but
This
I
is a
think
TV match, dude.
it's a TV match, but I think it's going to be. Here's my main prediction. I don't know if it's a top rope take, maybe a middle rope take.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a main event of a Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
And they're going to implode the ring from the tsunami.
No, I think that from the tsunami. So
Yeah.
they're not doing the superplex.
They're not going to do
spot.
the super because we've seen it before, but I think the tsunami implodes the ring. Like he hits the tsunami.
Interesting.
Boom, boom.
Could you imagine if you were there from the live show and just like in right before the match, you see a bunch of crew come out just loosening bolts?
That'd be great. There was a couple of. I remember seeing a video when Jacob Fatu debuted, and someone was like at ringside. And he was like, "Guys, I've been to hundreds of shows before. They bring out fake crew members and a guy in a hoodie. Someone's under the ring, and so you're gonna see in this main event that someone will come out and attack Cody Rhodes. I don't know who it is, but it will happen." And then they show Jacob Fatu, and everyone's like, "Oh." And so,
yeah,
it's little stuff
that.
like that. I guess it's interesting if you're in the live crowd, but who cares? Like, it's going to be an awesome moment. And that's what I at least hope happens with this Bronson Reed.
That would be incredible.
Braun Strowman feud that will get both of these guys over, really.
Yes, I like it. Let's make it happen.
And it's almost a passing of the torch moment because the last time we saw the ring implode was, I think, Braun Strowman and Big Show.
Braun Strowman, or it was Big Show or Mark Henry, right? Or did Braun?
They did Braun and Big Show, but that was good. But it was funny because they did Big Show, Mark Henry before that at Vengeance, and so it's almost like
Brock and Big Show. Is that who it is?
Brock and Big Show did the first one. Then
Big Show's been involved in all of them.
Mark Henry, Big Show, and Braun Strowman. But now that you have Braun Strowman there, and you don't have the Big Show element, you could pass that torch to Bronson Reed, and then you kind of keep the chain going.
Yes.
Like, then the next one has Bronson Reed and someone else.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I hope you're right. That would be awesome.
Yeah, but ultimately, Jey Uso gets the win. What do you think about Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship? Do you think this happens at Bad Blood? Because we're kind of loading up this card.
I think Bad Blood feels like a big one.
It feels like a heavy Raw card, too. Because if we were thinking about like Gunther and Sami Zayn possibly being on there, and then you have Braun and Jey Uso, that's 5 Raw matches. And they usually keep it to a 5-match card. So I'm curious to see if they extend the card. I wouldn't mind if it's like 7-8 matches like All Out was in the main card. But ultimately, I could see this as a Raw main event as well. They do like putting the Intercontinental Championship
Yes.
at the main event picture. Before we move on to All Out, though, this is the big top talking point I think we got to discuss.
Okay.
Raw moving to 2 hours,
Hmm.
starting in October through the end of the year. What are your thoughts on Raw moving to 2 hours, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, Monday nights?
I'm curious as to what the business decision is behind it. Is it entirely commercial free because it's on Netflix, right? So, um, I mean, I think the big concern for people is that they just have so much talent now that it's like, how do you condense that into a 2 hour show? Um, but I guess the entire also the idea is because they're on Netflix, there can't be any commercials. So is a 3 hour non-commercial show just too much to break it up? Like, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I'm not like I don't have pitchforks out, but like it's one of those things where we're gonna see what it looks like, right? Because aren't they doing it on TV for like until the end of the year?
Right. They're doing it on TV till the end of the year. And then I was still confused as to if this was just like from now till the end of the year and then they're going to go back to three for Netflix or if this is
No, I
like the
don't think they're ever
permanent
going back to
change.
3. I think the 3 hour era is done.
All right. Well, what I do like about it, 8 to 10 is significantly better than 9 to 11, which is what it was when it was
Yeah.
2 hours before. So I do like that. And I also hope that it puts an emphasis or like, okay, we have 1 hour less to book of TV. So that's a lot less stress for the writers. But then they have to make those 2 hours like really important. Like we're only
Yeah.
going to get the meat of Monday Night Raw, which is great because then now you could cut stuff like the Pure Fusion Collective, which we don't need to
Okay, here's
see.
my hot take though. Not hot take, but here's the big concern.
All right.
How do the women get on the show?
You book the women in interesting storylines. You don't book them in crappy feuds where they say they're taking over the division and they're clearly not taking over the division. You can book women's storylines well. We've seen WWE do this before. It's not that hard. I can't believe this is what I hate. This is not your fault, but kind of got me going here. It's possible to book women's wrestling well. Just book it well. Like we've seen it before. 1 hour show, 2 hour show, 3 hour show. You could book women's wrestling well, and you could book it so that it's not one segment or two
Mhm.
segments on the show. You can do it so that you have an interesting women's storyline that warrants a spot on a 2 hour show, and it makes sense. AEW likes to flip flop on this. Like they'll either have a really strong like month or two where they book women's wrestling well. They have multiple segments, and sometimes they'll even have a main event.
Mhm.
WWE has kind of lacked on that for me recently. So I hope if they do go to 2 hours, they start to put more of a focus on women's segments and main event by only having the important women's segments on the card or making the women's segments important enough to deserve a spot on a 2 hour show.
I mean, that's fair. I just feel like there hasn't been a precedent that they can do that or have done that recently.
Well,
And
they
so
did
that
it. The thing is, they did it in NXT. Like they had 1 hour shows and they made women's wrestling feel important. So the fact that you cannot tell me, and that was when Triple H was booking. So you can't tell me that Triple H can't book a important or a significant women's storyline or segments on a show for 2 hours when he did it for a 1 hour show.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, listen, they got a challenge in front of them, that's for sure. But what do you do with all these talent that aren't going to make the show now?
Well, that's going to be a conversation that needs to be had. I think what you do is you
Bring back
just
Sunday Night Heat. Let's go.
I mean, you could have like a 1 hour fun show in the middle of the week that no one will watch. That's fun. But I think the
That's
best
what
thing
we
to
do.
do is just divide the different important segments amongst every other week. So,
Mhm.
like maybe this week for 2 hours, you focus on the World Heavyweight Championship picture and the tag team title picture. Then the
Yeah.
next week, you do the Women's Championship and the Intercontinental. You could still put in smaller segments of the other titles, but you just have more different focuses for different weeks
Mhm.
that will still build up shows well going into the pay-per-view. It could be done. Like we see it on Dynamite, we see it on SmackDown.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not like
true.
this foreign thing that they've never done before. In fact, I think they'll be more relieved not having to try to fill up a 3 hour show with useless segments.
Yeah. I mean, let's hope so. Justice for Shayna Baszler. Get her back. Come on. Come on. Come on, Triple H. Get her
Right
out
on.
of this.
All right, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and at least I'll be able to catch Monday
But
Night
to answer
Raw
your question,
before
and while we
I
wrap
go to
up
bed.
Raw, I think Jey Uso and Braun Breaker are two very over talents, and I would like to see them battle at the pay per view. But I understand from a time constraint if they would rather just do it as a TV main event. I am happy though that Jey Uso finally has something to do though, because since WrestleMania he's had nothing.
Yeah, I think my prediction is these two matches, Braun and Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker and Jey Uso are both TV main events.
That's
And
fair.
well, I because Bad Blood already has a lot of Raw
Yeah,
matches on it, and they like to keep that card short. But
it's
let's
just news.
transition from Monday Night Raw to All Out.
Heck yeah.
I'm
Woo.
just gonna out you right now, Jason. You did not watch the show.
No, but I've seen clips.
You've seen clips, and so we're gonna talk about those clips. Here's a clip that you may or may not have seen. Did you see All Elite Wrestling make probably their biggest signing of the year?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Let me guess. They signed Shane McMahon. No,
No, it was on the show.
no. Refresh my memory.
Oh man. Oh man. I can't believe you didn't see this. This is all over. Maybe one of the biggest talking points outside of the two main events. Big Justice and AJ, the Costco guys, were in attendance for All Out. The double chunk chocolate cookie and the chicken bake were in full force, and they really did bring the boom to All Out. I hope we see more of them. And you know, AJ was actually a professional wrestler on the New Jersey independent scene, so it would be cool to get him in on the action. And they definitely brought the boom. We also, there's no Rizzler. Maybe AEW fears the Rizzler, so maybe next time they get him on the show, bring on the Rizzler. But very excited to see Big Justice and AJ. And you look just as excited as I am for this signing. So I'll let you speak all about this.
You ever have those moments where you realize you're like old? Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can't believe this. The Costco guys, they bring the boom to you. You don't know about the Costco guys?
Oh, who are these people?
Oh my goodness. Are you 27 or 57?
Yeah, right. Yeah. How old are you? 24?
24. So this is my wheelhouse here.
So
and they're also from New Jersey.
Somewhere in the last 3 years.
This is Northeast viral TikTok right here that has taken over the world. They made it in Chicago.
I've seen like pictures of them on Twitter. X.
Okay.
I have no interest in watching their videos. And from what I understand, I think that's for the best.
All right. Well, you could be a hater all you want. The Rizzler will be coming for you. He watches this stuff.
I hope there's an audience member who understands what we were talking
about. They'll definitely understand. Don't worry.
Okay. Because I don't.
Well, I'm glad.
Are they getting in the ring?
What's up?
Are they going to get in the ring?
I hope that's what I'm hoping for, because AJ was in fact an independent wrestler. They actually brought it up on the pre-show. RJ City brought up the fact that he teamed with Sanjay Dutt on the independent scene, which that'd be cool if they had like a little interaction. I think that'd be
Sanjay Dutt and what's his name, AJ?
Yeah.
Versus who?
Well, I don't know. No, you have AJ team with Satnam Singh, and they call themselves the Big Boom.
Okay. No, so this is good though, because this goes into what I want to see happen.
More tag teams. We need more homegrown AEW tag teams.
Well, yes, you were not wrong there. But also, I want my boy Paul White to do something. Bring the Big Show out here and just boom.
That's my gosh. You just telling me Big Show's going to bring the boom to AJ, give him the knockout punch?
That's all I want. I would let's bring America together, unite the country, and let's have Paul White knock out this moron.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. I'm glad that we're fantasy booking Big Justice and AJ to show up on Dynamite and do stuff. That would get me. Look, I don't care what any of the hate is saying. If they actually did book AJ in like multiple week storyline on Dynamite, home run for AEW.
No, that's where I draw the line. I don't want a multiple week storyline.
All right. Well, you know what? This is an alternative. You fed
Paul White.
Look, you fed drone. You can go watch WWE. I'm gonna watch the real Graps when AJ and Paul White go at it. All right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to. All right. Forget all that stuff. We got to move on to the real double main event.
No, I thought that was a main event.
Well, that's the main event for me. And we can wrap up the show now. Thank you guys for watching Top Rope Takes. No, but we had probably like one of the most intense wrestling angles we've seen in decades, along with one of the most brutal finishes to a match that I've seen in like a really long time. Back to back on the show, we had John Moxley with the big turn, the big reveal. Claudio
Mm-hmm.
Castagnoli hitting the uppercut on Bryan Danielson after retaining the title
It's 2 weeks
against
too
Jack
early.
Perry. Maybe we'll get into it more, but not only did he do the uppercut and Bryan Danielson looked shocked, we had John Moxley throw the plastic bag over Bryan Danielson, basically attempted murder
Mm-hmm.
on this
Mm-hmm.
pay-per-view.
God, I missed that
And
on my screen.
Wheeler Yuta trying to make the save for Danielson, but Pac holding him back. So we have this trio, and we also have Marina Shafir come out, kick Bryce Remsburg, and we have this now
Deserved.
this group with uh Moxley, Claudio, Pac, and Marina Shafir all coming together. Uh and yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this because I got some thoughts on how this segment played out.
I think it fits Mox's character. I didn't. I think Mox needed something new, so I liked this. And Mox is genuinely, as somebody who no, not trying to flex, but just being genuine. I've met him. He's a scary person. He's like very tall and very intimidating. There's no warmth to this man. Um, and so yeah, I thought that he works better as this kind of like character. So I like that direction for him. I am not a huge fan of the Claudio being part of it because I think I don't buy it from Claudio. I think Claudio is more of a babyface. I wish he would have stayed aligned with Wheeler Yuta if they were going to go in that direction and have just Moxley bring in two new heavies to kind of be like the new BCC. Um, yeah, Wheeler's got to stay babyface because I don't buy him as a heel at all. Marina Shafir, interesting addition. Not sure why she's there, but I assume that means that we're going to get a babyface woman, maybe. I don't know who that is. We could speculate. Maybe my girl Shayna Baszler can jump in, or Ronda, but she would be a heel. Yeah, I thought this was necessary because Danielson's got a limited amount of dates left in his career, and this story with Moxley is going to be, if not the last thing, the penultimate thing. It was bound to happen. So yeah, I thought this was a really intense direction to really ignite the feud and get people invested. So yeah, I was a big fan. As far as the plastic bag thing goes, I thought that was different, something we haven't seen before, very intense. But like I said earlier, I've missed attempted murder on my screen. I think the last time we saw that was when Braun Strowman was thrown into like the back of a dump truck. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely, Terry Funk was looking down on us because that was the last time I remember a plastic bag being used
Oh
was when Ric
yes.
Flair and Terry Funk had
Mm.
that involved
Mm-hmm.
in their feud. But I did like I think this is interesting. So let's talk about the actual group itself. You mentioned you don't buy Claudio being in the group. I'm cool with it because we talked about this on the predictions show. Claudio's really not wowing us right now with his current position in AEW. So I'm at least glad that he has kind of a new direction to go off of. And at least we could see from there if he could be like this kind of silent killer. I wouldn't have him on the mic or say anything because I think when he's on the mic, he's more of a babyface type. But I think if he just, he's not even that great of a promo anyway. So if he's just a silent killer who just beats people up along with Moxley, I'm cool with that. And I think it's more interesting than what he's been doing in AEW. So I'll give him a thumbs up there. This is the part I don't like. Right now, the trio's champions are still Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta. So what are we doing here? Is Wheeler Yuta going to defend it 3-on-1? Are they going to steal the title from Wheeler Yuta and put it on Moxley? Like, how does this really play out? I hated when they did this in WWE when Seth and Dean won the tag titles, and then Dean immediately turned on Seth, and then Seth had to defend it 2-on-1. I thought that was like really
Yeah.
lackluster, short-sighted booking. And I feel the same way here, where it's like this almost feels like what they just did the trios thing to give Pac a moment, and then they didn't really think about, oh well, we have this new direction that we're
100%.
going in. How are we going to play with the trios championships? Maybe they can prove me wrong
And they took
in
it
a
off the
week or two.
patriarchy who are now doing little.
Right. And they also, that was another thing I'll mention quickly. They were going to cash in. Christian Cage was going to cash in on Bryan Danielson after this match. We had Kill Switch and Jack Perry have this like cool face off of like, well, it's been a while since we've really interacted, but like we used to be tag team champions. So I thought that was at least a little cool moment for those two who are just taking completely different paths to kind of, cross in this weird way. And that was before Jon Moxley made the save, and it seemed like the BCC were coming out. Then all the stuff played out. So the group itself, cool with. I don't like how the trios championship picture looks like right now. Again, we'll see what happens and how they treat that situation in the coming weeks. Why was there not like security running out or anyone in the locker room running out for this attempted murder? Why were the police not showing up? It just, that stuff to me takes me out of the wrestling show. Like, at least put in an effort to be like, this should not be happening on a wrestling show. And actually, my MVP for this segment and really the night was Jim Ross. Jim Ross sold this whole thing so well, where he's like, they called him in as the voice of professional wrestling. He comes in and says, this is not professional wrestling. This just makes me sick. And part of it is like the story, but also part of it is kind of me thinking like Jim Ross hates what's going on right now. Legitimately. Yeah. And that's what I loved about it. It's kind of like a blurred lines thing where we get to see the real Jim Ross kind of slip out and be like, no, this should not be happening on a show.
Jim Ross has made a career off of the big moment and just absolutely despising the heels. I think about his stuff with Triple H and stuff like the way he like to this day, like for everything you want to say about Jim Ross and the quality of his work in 2024, this, to your point, proves that like if you want to get an angle over, specifically a heel getting heat, you put Jim Ross at the commentary desk because that man knows how to be upset. And honestly, you know what? Yes, I have not seen this. The fact that you were talking about this in such high graces really makes my heart happy because Jim Ross is a legend and Jim Ross has been getting a lot of heat lately. And you can debate whether or not it was deservedly so or not. But I think the fact that we're acknowledging that Jim Ross was the hero of the segment really makes my heart happy, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's personally the greatest commentator of all time.
No question. Question.
The fact that he could still do this level of commentary at his age in 2024 is incredible. And to your point, like when he was saying this stuff, even though it was storyline wise, whatever, there's still a part of me that feels like this is genuinely what Jim Ross thinks about this segment, for better or for worse. And so people might take that as like, oh, he's just crapping all over AEW and its booking. No, he still got the segment over and how terrible it was, but he did it in a way that felt genuine and felt like he wasn't acting or playing it up as this like dastardly thing, like the other commentators were. Like I thought the other commentators were kind of like,
oh, this is so terrible.
Yeah, it was just like a little melodramatic, but Jim Ross actually felt like he was disgusted with the actions he just saw in the ring.
Real quick, I want to backtrack a second because you brought up a point that kind of ties into something I want to say. You talked about the reason that Jim Ross, it seemed authentic and it seemed real, and that's why we enjoyed it. That is why I do not think Claudio should be a heel, because nobody buys that Claudio. Everyone knows he's a good dude. Like, and everyone knows that like he's going to get cheered because he's a great wrestler. Like he is much better. He's more authentic. Even if he's not the most charismatic man in the world either way, he is more authentically somebody you want to cheer than somebody you want to boo. That just made me think of that because I wanted to say that. And I was like, I don't buy him as a heel.
Yeah, well, that's going to be the challenge they have in the coming weeks is how are they going to present Claudio in a way where I want to boo this guy? But again, I'm glad that they're actually just doing something different with him versus I felt like he was getting stale in his babyface role. So that's why I'm willing to give this a shot. You might be right. It might be a month or two and we're just like, oh, well, I want to cheer this guy because he's awesome and he's just doing all this crazy stuff. But I think just a nice change of pace could lead to something more exciting for Claudio. As far as the brutality of this segment, and they'll lead into our main event. Actually, we'll save it for the main event because I think that it kind of coincides with each other, just the attempted murder, along with our lights out, unsanctioned steel cage match between Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. From the jump, these two just wanted to absolutely kill each other, which was interesting coming off of
Kill
an
each
attempted
other.
murder.
Yeah.
You had Swerve come out in like the picture of Hangman lighting his old house on fire.
Nice.
Before the match even started, Swerve was trying to choke Hangman on the cage that was lowering down. Like he had him right on the ring apron and the cage was lowering. So it was like already these two just want to absolutely murder each other. I'm going to already just throw out a complaint here because I did think this match was a spectacle. I'll call it that. I absolutely hated when in the middle of this match, Hangman goes to pick up a chair and the ref stops him. And I immediately had flashbacks to that Hell in a Cell match that we were alluding to before in 2019 when he was like, Seth, don't do this. Seth, no. It's an unsanctioned, lights out steel cage match. Why are you trying to stop Hangman Page from doing it?
Because he's a good person with a soul, Will.
And that's what they were trying to put over on commentary. But ultimately, it seems so phony because all it was a spot for the ref to bend over and pick up the chair so that Swerve could do a buckshot lariat over the ref onto Hangman for a really sloppy looking clothesline spot.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had made it a little more genuine, I maybe could have bought it, but it just seems so forced. It seemed like, and it also was like, why are they doing that? This should be like, the ref shouldn't be getting involved in something like this. The fact that it's unsanctioned and the ref is even doing something like that, it was egregious. I did like the little detail, though, that they took the AEW logo off the ref shirt. I thought that was nice. So it was like, wait a minute, this is unsanctioned. Why is there an AEW ref in there? They took the logo off. So I guess that immediately voids them of any responsibility. So whatever, fine. We saw Cinder Block be used, which has been significant in this whole feud in Swerve's career. And that powerbomb spot onto Hangman, that looked brutal. And they even got a close up of his back after the Cinder Block spot. That just looked absolutely brutal. But ultimately, let's get to the spot that everyone's talking about. Hangman pulls out a syringe. And Jason, I was at the dentist like a few weeks ago. And that is the worst part of going to the dentist is when they put that syringe in your mouth and you get all numb in your mouth. It doesn't feel good. Your mouth gets all swollen up. It's the worst part of it. Everything else after that, when they pick out your teeth, it's uncomfortable, but it's fine to deal with. But I think having that as like something that most people have dealt with before, people have had that, they know that feeling, made it almost even more skin crawling when Hangman just takes this syringe and puts it inside Swerve's mouth. Who knows what was in it? If it was like, something that would put him to sleep or if it was just something that would numb his mouth, puts it into his mouth and then does the chair shot over the head. It completely breaks over Swerve's head and Hangman wins by knockout. What are your thoughts on the brutality of this finish and just your thoughts on this main event in general?
Certainly warranted given the height of the feud. And certainly, like, you had to do something like this because a normal street fight match, we've seen that. They needed to do something new. So I don't mind it. I think AEW has never shied away from gross, gory, hardcore wrestling, deathmatch wrestling. Like that, go back to from the year the company started, they've been doing this. So I don't think it's anything new. I certainly think we've seen worse. Like I can remember some of those matches with the barbed wire and shit. Like I need to see that. Like didn't Kenny and Moxley have like a match or something like that? It was just so gross.
Oh yeah, they've had a few of that kind of
Yeah,
unsanctioned no
or like
DQ
the Nick
stuff, and then
Gage
there's the
stuff. Like
exploding barbed wire. Nick Gage,
well, that was hilarious, but this was.
We'll
But
forget
you know
that
what I mean?
finish.
Like as far as like the level of brutality is nothing new and should not be surprising to AEW fans. Certainly cements itself as an alternative to WWE. They are not trying to be WWE, which I think is for the better. They are indie wrestling with a product with a budget. Is what AEW is. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I think the big complaint people have is about like given all the information we have about chair shots and head injuries and everything like that. Like, yeah, But I mean, listen, not to break anybody's hearts that may be watching and don't know this information, but I'd almost be willing to bet that that chair was gimmicked somehow to make it safer. I don't know how. I don't, not the magician. I don't know the secrets. I just know that like they didn't act, the magician doesn't actually saw someone in half, right? Um, but I'd be willing to bet that something was put in place to protect the wrestlers. And let's be honest, like you need that shock value to end the match. And chair shots to the head or something what we don't see anymore for good reason. So I think there's the shock value there that if you're gonna do it like once, like this is bringing out for a big spot. Theoretically, I think this does this. I think the big question for me is like, does this end the feud, or do they move on to different things now?
I think for the time being, it ends the feud. Or I
Right.
don't know about like I think again, I think this is like an eternal feud. So like they'll
Yeah.
come back around to this at some point. But if they want to move on to separate things, I don't know what they do with Swerve if they keep him off
They're the
TV for a
Wile E.
bit.
Coyote and Roadrunner of AEW.
Sure. Um,
Did you get that
but
reference? Was that too old for you?
no, all right. Next, you're gonna make like a Three Stooges reference.
Well,
Like I don't know what
I
you.
was getting there.
But
You
yeah,
ruined
no, I
it.
think with AEW, you made the point. It's an alternative. And what I like about alternatives is it should be something I don't see on the other show. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know like I'm never going to see on WWE a guy try to kill another guy with a plastic bag. I know on WWE I'm not going to
Not
see
anymore. You're
someone
not.
stick a syringe
Yeah.
inside someone's mouth or
Yes.
do chair shots over the head. So from that perspective, I really do like that AEW does things that you won't see on WWE. Here's the thing. Only time will tell with AEW and if this alternative angle on professional wrestling really does work in the TV world because they do push that boundary. And again, this was on pay-per-view, so I think it's a little different.
It is.
But if they
It'll be
it
on
really comes
Max
down to if they
soon.
get the TV deal. If they get that TV deal from Warner Brothers Discovery, or I hear rumors that Fox Sports is even going to make a play for
Fox Sports.
Dynamite after losing SmackDown, again, it would be at a fraction of the cost. But that would be an interesting move if Fox does swoop in and try to get
We are Fox Sports.
AEW. If they do get that deal, then I think it's proven that there is a market for an alternative wrestling brand. It doesn't have to get as many views as WWE, but
I think
there
that's
is a
already
passionate.
proven.
Well, it is proven, but you'll be surprised on Twitter that everyone's like, "Well, this company's in the bud. They're not. Why are they not announcing the TV deal? There's clearly nothing going on." Even though Tony Khan's wearing like Max and Discovery gear on interviews and stuff. Once they
That's
do
internet
a
fans.
release the news that they have this TV deal, I think it'll put to rest anyone's bad faith takes about AEW going down the tube because of this stuff. Now, if it is revealed that they don't have a TV deal in place and that they're going to have to find some second rate or third rate place to air All Elite Wrestling on, like whether it's Dynamite, Collision, etc., then we can have the conversation of, well, what led to this? Was it stuff like this that was too brutal?
They're gonna get a
Was
deal.
it was it like the over the top stuff? We'll have that conversation if that happens. I'm confident though that they will get the TV deal and that we will continue to see what is best for wrestling, which is an alternative to WWE that still keeps WWE on the edge of its seat, knowing that there's a number two right there, just in case they try to fall back into their 2018, 2019 ways of just awful television. So we'll see what happens. I think this is good for AEW, but ultimately it depends on what AEW is trying to accomplish. Are they trying to be a family friendly show? If so, then don't do this.
They've
If
never
they're
tried to
trying
be a
to
family
be
friendly show.
I
Like,
think
yes,
they
they're
no. I think early on they were trying to get as big of an audience as possible. I think now in 2024 and just in the past 2 years, I think they know their audience, they know what their fans want to see, and they're happy with where they're at, which is 500, 600,000 viewers a show, which is fine. But if they don't want to grow it to over a million like they had before, then you could keep doing this. If they do want to expand their audience a little bit, then they do kind of have to watch what they do with this stuff. That's all I'm saying. But I
I
have no
think,
problem with them wanting to be an alternative with a hardcore niche audience.
yeah, and I think that's exactly what they are. Like, they AEW is not WWE. They are not mainstream. And I think that's the big issue that they want to be mainstream, right? But I think that's the issue in itself is that to be the alternative, you have to be the counterculture, which by definition is not the mainstream product. You are for the sickos, as Tony Khan says. You are for hardcore pro wrestling fans. You are not a casual audience. Now, can you do things to try and bring in a casual audience? Absolutely. But you can't cater to them. You have to cater to your base, which is hardcore pro wrestling fans. It would be like if now this is not a one for one because AEW is not as extreme all the time. But this would have been like in 1996 if ECW was like, we're going to compete with WWE. No more strippers and hardcore matches. And it's like, let's cater to a friendly audience. It's like, no, that's your brand. Your brand, your audience, the why they're so loyal and hardcore for you is because that you are a niche audience. Now, do they want to be more WCW? Yeah, they do. They want to be more WCW. But even WCW was different than WWE in a lot of ways because they were the more edgier product. And let's be very clear, WCW succeeded and gained a large audience because they were bringing in established stars from the other company, which is what AEW was doing at the height of its popularity, and which is what they're going to need to continue to do to bring in new viewers. Like the reality of the situation is you're not going to get mainstream appeal from people like John Moxley and maybe Orange Cassidy, but probably not really. Those are for the sickos. So yes, every once in a while, when you have the opportunity, you bring in an established star that has a name value, like a CM Punk, like a Bryan Danielson, etc., and Adam Cole, whatever, and they will bring over some audience, but they are not mainstream. They are not number one, and they won't be number one as long as WWE is in charge and Triple H is in charge, and it's a good product. So yeah, they have to stay in their lane, which is what they've been saying and preaching since 2019, which is they are not trying to be the other company. They're trying to make the best product of what they are. And I think they're doing a great job. Do I have my complaints? Yes, I do. I think the story booking, the storylines lack a lot for me. There's a significant lack of logic and decisions, but the wrestling is great. The best do wrestle there. They have the best matches. They have some really entertaining and fun characters. And I watch it every week. It's great.
It's interesting the different comparisons you made because I do think AEW right now is very similar to ECW back in the day. But when AEW first started in 2019, let's not do revisionist history. They were clearly trying to compete with WWE, not by being a second WWE, but they were going to go head to head. Well, they didn't want to go head to head. WWE came in and decided they wanted to go head to head with NXT,
and they ended up and WWE lost,
and WWE lost. So it was clear like AEW was trying to compete with WWE, and they ended up winning. Now, in recent history, now that they clearly are not pulling the numbers of even an NXT on Tuesday nights on a separate night, I feel like it's a bit goalpost shifting by being like, all right, well, now we just want to be an alternative brand. So what do you want to be? Do you want to compete with WWE as like a strong number two? Or are you happy with being your own little promotion that isn't necessarily trying to compete with WWE, but has its own hardcore audience? It can be both, but what is their expectation? Is their expectation to try to grow their audience and then eventually surpass this current NXT and then also eventually try to compete with Raw and SmackDown? Because that's what it felt like they were trying to do in 2019 and 2020. Now it just feels like they're happy being number two and they're happy with their audience, which is completely fine. But as a business, if you're trying to keep this thing going for a long period of time, don't you eventually want to grow your audience and expand out there?
And I don't think anyone will argue that they're not trying to grow their audience.
But well, that's again, but then that comes full circle with the point. If you're trying to grow your audience, then what are they doing by alienating their audience with stuff like this?
But that is their audience. That is their current audience.
No, that's their audience. But if they're trying to grow their audience, Jason,
yes,
this doesn't grow an audience. Let's just be blunt. This doesn't grow an audience. I'm not complaining about this. I did love this main event, and I love the angle they did. But I'm just saying, I don't think this is bringing them closer to 1 million. In fact, I think it's going to steer some people away. Even though I enjoyed this, when Hangman stuck a syringe in Swerve's mouth, I was cringing. I was legitimately like wincing, like, oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
And I could see someone being a fan of wrestling, just in general, watching that and being like, oh, that's a little too far for me. I don't
Yeah,
know if
for
I
sure.
can take this. I don't know if some outsider is going to see that spot and be like, oh my God, dude, a syringe in the mouth. I got to go check out this stuff. I think
Might
those
be.
people are already watching AEW.
Yes. No, I agree with you. I agree. I agree with
So
everything you're saying.
and I'm happy where AEW is at, and I want to see them continue to succeed. But if their goal is growth, which is what I felt like their goal was in the first couple of years, I don't think this is the direction they need to go in. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree. Listen, I'm not a fan of the hardcore stuff. So the deathmatch, gross stuff, they can keep that, but some people like it, I guess.
So we'll see. And again, I think it comes down to if they have a strong TV deal coming into the
Mm-hmm.
next few years, then I think they could just keep doing what they're doing, and I'll continue to watch, and I'll be more than happy
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it every week on this podcast. But if they don't get the TV deal, then we're going to have to do some, reflection and see what brought them to that position.
Yeah, I agree. But
But I think we're both confident that they will get some
they're
sort of
fine.
TV
You're
deal
going to get a TV.
in a few years.
Yeah.
But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. This has been a great episode of Top Road Takes, Jason. I feel like we had a good conversation about the wrestling business,
Always.
Monday Night Raw,
Yeah.
and All Out as we
Yeah.
head into Bad Blood in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any final thoughts, Top Rope Takes, etc.?
I believe I called match of the night last week would be Will Ospreay and Pac, and was I wrong?
No, I love that
Great.
match. It was a great match.
So good.
And also, I'll give a shout out though to another great match on that card. Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale
Oh yeah, speaking of hardcore.
had a great feud. It wasn't for the CMLL title, so I was mistaken. This was just a Chicago street fight. But Chris Statlander did end up getting the win, looking great heading into her appearance at Creative Pro Wrestling on September 22nd. Big Bang. Looking forward to seeing her team up with Adrenaline Express to take on the Savage Gnomes. Very
The
excited about that
Savage
match.
Gnomes.
Yeah, do you know who's in that tag team?
No.
It's the Iron Savages,
Okay.
Bear
So I know
Bronson,
them. Yeah.
and Bear
Bear
Boulder,
Boulder. Yeah.
and Bear Bronson's fiance, who's been tearing it up on the independent scene, Gabby Forza, who is the Creative Pro Women's Champion.
Oh. Why are they
She's
gnomes?
Well, she calls herself your homie, the Nomi, Gabby Forza, and she comes out. She wears a little gnome hat. She's got like a Road Warriors kind of shoulder pad thing with little gnome spikes on it. And
Mm-hmm.
she's awesome. She's basically like Goldberg, but in the women's division. She just spears, jackhammers, brutalizes everyone.
Was Goldberg ever a gnome?
Well, dude, they call her Gnomeberg. That's her nickname on the independence team.
I can't.
Shout out to Gabby Forza, though.
Shout
She's
out Gabby
awesome. And I'm
Forza.
looking forward to her and the Iron Savages going up against Chris Statlander and Adrenaline Express. Long tenure tag team over there at Creed Pro, former Creed Pro tag team champions.
Real quick,
So,
before we wrap this up, and I do want to wrap this up, a couple things we need to touch on. Obviously, we talked about Will Ospreay and Pac had a great match. Will Ospreay retained. You had predicted, as many did, that we got then a stare down or face off between Will Ospreay and Ricochet, which will, is ideally the direction for the next pay per view. Excited for that. Other thing that we should probably talk about here is MJF did defeat Daniel Garcia, as I predicted. But Daniel Garcia hit a top rope pile driver to write MJF off TV. Apparently, if you listen to Dirt Sheets, Daniel Garcia has not re-signed with AEW as of yet. So I don't know what direction that's all going in, but certainly an interesting to give MJF the win, but then write him off.
I'm glad you brought that up because I hated that. I hated the fact that MJF won and they decided to write him off because if it is because Daniel Garcia didn't sign a contract, I thought that was really stupid. You could have done an angle where Daniel Garcia brutalizes MJF to the point where not only does he get the win, but he takes out MJF. That would have put over Daniel Garcia huge. I don't think this, even though he took out MJF, I still feel like Daniel Garcia is kind of in the same spot where, another one bites the dust with MJF getting a fluke win. I know they want to make MJF still look strong, but I don't think him losing does anything negative to his character. In fact, I still think you could pull off this storyline where he's kind of on a downward spiral. It reminded me of when Cena beat Lesnar after losing to Rock.
Yeah.
Like Cena should have just lost to Brock if your direction is to keep Brock strong going into his future feuds. And you also are doing the storyline where Cena's on a downward spiral.
I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare Brock Lesnar and Daniel
I'm
Garcia.
not comparing. Look, this is what you're doing. You're like, oh, well, now you're comparing Brock Lesnar to Daniel Garcia. Look, Brock Lesnar has 300 pounds on Daniel Garcia. Obviously, they're not the same person. But if you want to make Daniel Garcia look strong and you want MJF to do this downward spiral, which is similar storylines to what happened in 2012, then you give Daniel Garcia the win.
Yeah, I get you. I hear you. I agree. I just think it's two different scenarios.
I don't think the MJF and John Cena downward spiral is that far off. Coming off of a big loss at a major pay-per-view, still a downward spiral after a big loss, kind of default or like unraveling as the weeks go on. Has a tough challenge ahead of him in a quick pay-per-view turnaround.
Yeah,
and then just it doesn't matter because he gets the win anyway.
Yeah, but I feel like you're supposed to feel bad for Cena in 2012, whereas MJF were kind of like, you know.
So. I don't know that because Cena was getting those mixed reactions. Still.
He was a baby face, brother.
No, he was a baby face, but I don't think like the crowd didn't buy it like him as a baby face at the time. They never did in that 2010 to 2013 ish.
That feels like revisionist history.
Oh, are you no? It sounds like revisionist history that you're trying to erase the "Let's go Cena sucks" chance.
I'm not arguing it's polarizing, but you can't be like, oh, nobody likes Cena.
Dude, it was bad after the pipe bomb. Like Cena would get booed like really badly at major cities, like all of the major mark cities, like New York, Chicago, Philly. Well, you would know Boston. Even he got booed in his hometown in one of the buildups to Rock Cena. So I don't know.
He was the heel in that one. I will give you that.
So yeah, I don't know. Like again, you're right that it's two different things, but it's very similar in that MJF should continue if they're gonna do a downward spiral storyline like they're doing, babyface or heel, you should then have that play out in the matches where they lose, and then it puts the other guy streak. Over. Yeah, because then that makes his character more interesting. This is a guy who dominated 2023 by winning all of his matches. He's the one guy who you could have like an MJF losing streak thing, and then he could get a big win to bounce back from it.
Yeah.
It's not like the MVP losing streak from 2009. Let's make that clear.
What I was thinking of. All right, Will. Anything else from the show you want to talk about?
I'm good on this end. You can find me on Twitter at Thrilly Vanilli. That's with a Y at the end, Thrilly Vanilli. And of course, Willie.Thrill, as you see below on Instagram. We're going to be back on Tuesdays like we were today for Top Rope Takes. And so stay tuned for that.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace.